He's very influential. He take position, he take oxygen. That's why I started with a statement from Uli Hoeneß, because I think that he was right. Manuel Neuer would still be number one goalkeeper at Bayern for another year. Thomas Müller won't be the number one. He hasn't been the number one for a couple of 2 years. Is he a fantastic ambassador for Bayern? Of course he is. Can he, in some games, come in and do a change? Of course he can. But to be a manager of a club, to be a managing person at the club, there is finances, there are future. So what are you going to do? I mean, the easy thing for Thomas Müller, if he didn't want to play football, he could say, okay, I will end my career now, but I will shadow Dresden for 1 or 2 years to learn his trade.
Hi and welcome to the Fußball channel. I'm your host Markus Fjørtoft, and as always joined by co-host Jan Fjørtoft. First of all, Dad, how are you?
I'm fine. What did I do in this weekend? I can't remember. What did I do?
You're getting that old.
Yeah, I'm getting that old. I can remember all the starting 11s from the 70s and the 80s when I followed football. But no, it's been a good week. And then Erling Haaland injured in the FA Cup, which was bad news for us. We are recording this on the Tuesday when they're the first semi-final in Germany. So if you're listening to this, we don't know the results of the two semi-finals. And we will talk about Leipzig. But the last report now from England is that Erling will be out for 5 to 7 weeks. And with the City then battling for their Champions League, battling to get into the FA Cup final. So maybe for the 17th of May, the National Day of Norway, this is the FA Cup final, and hopefully for City, the Norwegian will be back.
And then they had a former Bundesliga player, former Eintracht player, Umar Mamouche, who did send Manchester City through to the semi-finals of the FA Cup. As you mentioned, there is the German FA Cup, but the DFB Cup. Tuesday and Wednesday, Bielefeld take on Leverkusen, Stuttgart take on RB Leipzig, and we'll touch upon Marco Rose and the Leipzig situation shortly. But let's start that. I think this topic of Thomas Müller leaving Bayern, there's so many different aspects to touch upon it, because obviously there's the football romantic of us, you know, who with Thomas Müller. There is a sporting aspect of it. Thomas Müller is one of the most successful Bayern German players in history, period. With everything that is going on, Bayern are going through their financial cleanup, so to speak. They will want to give more space to, in terms of a wage budget, in terms of just overall squad structure. And therein lies the mix, because also there's a communication aspect of it as well, in which we've heard if Müller wants to extend, we will give him the opportunity to stay, of course. And as it happens to be, Thomas Müller was not offered any contract, and we will have a short recording that will explain the situation from the Bayern insider. But first, I want to get your opinion on it, because there's so many moving parts, and you can see both sides in a way as well.
You can, but having said that, it's the hardest thing to do is to end someone's career that has been so fantastic that Thomas Müller has been. That this generation, they won everything with Bayern, with their country. So if you put them into Philipp Lahm, Bastian Schweinsteiger, Manuel Neuer, and Thomas Müller, 2 left. Bastian Schweinsteiger got an exit, like everybody else who is at that age. They go to Manchester United. So he kind of get a golden kind of handshake coming to a great club like Manchester United. Philipp Lahm, he just retired on his own. He said enough is enough. That sorted out the problem for them. Manuel Neuer, he's a goalkeeper, and the reason I say that is more a particular defined kind of position, because he can kind of play on like a lot of goalkeepers. I've been talking about Buffon. I mean, he played forever. I think he's now retired, Buffon, but Manuel Neuer can keep on playing, and he's still got that thing. And then you have left with Thomas Müller. And I saw something, a small thing that they presented, and there was a premiere of Thomas Müller's film in Munich. And Uli Hoeneß attended that premiere, and he said in a fatherly way, and he said, and I thought that was quite good, because that was somehow emotionally, no emotions, but still a lot of love, if you know what I mean. He said, if you come to that stage of your career that you're in and out of the team, then maybe it's time to leave. And when you say that in a good way, that I would have told you, Marcus, as a father. I said, maybe now it's the time, Marcus. I know this is tough. So I can understand what he's saying. First of all, he's on a big money. That is a part of the
17 million euros a year, apparently.
Apparently, and so they need to save that money. And if he's not the number one choice at this position, and to be fair, he hasn't been for a couple of 3 years, that is a hard thing to kind of say, okay, stay on, last forever. But before, Marcus, I'll do the communication bit. We can listen to the Bayern insider, Christian Falk, who is the head of everything, I must say, in terms of Bayern insider, and he sent us this report.
Hello, Marcus. Servus, Jan. Yes, it's really a difficult situation for Thomas Müller. He would have liked to play another season for FC Bayern. In November, Max Eberl told him that the club was planning another season with him. And also in January, he said in public once again that the decision is up to Müller alone. Müller had expected to receive another offer before the talks, which were during the last weeks, but he did not receive one, not even for a lower salary. That came as a surprise. He had not expected this treatment. The end of his career at FC Bayern was decided without him. Now he's faced with the question, will he play for another club or will he end his career? Clubs in the USA are interested. He can't imagine Saudi Arabia. There are supposed to be talks this week with the club again. The decision is no longer when the path diverge, but how. The club is trying to tie Müller to the club in a different role. The question, does Müller still want to do that? My opinion, a club legend like him deserves to be treated differently. Best regards from Munich, Christian.
And that was a friend of the podcast, Christian Falk. And Dad, why can't Bayern just give him a smaller contract? He can stay. He's so important for the dressing room. He's a continuity bearer, a culture bearer. In a way, would that be so wrong?
No, but that's called something else. That's called something, give him a job at the club, which I think they would do. But we can see that the reports coming out that Thomas Müller doesn't want to end his career, so maybe he will go to MLS. Maybe he'll try to do that, go for an adventure. Obviously, he will be a popular man, whatever he plays, even at this age. So we don't know. Maybe they've said that. Maybe Thomas Müller think that he can hang on for another year like Manuel Neuer. What do we know about the kind of tightest negotiations? That this is a tough thing. I remember I was sitting in the Double Pass, which is the big show by Sport 1 a Sunday morning a year ago or something, where we had the same discussion, and Christoph Freund was in the studio, and I remember I said, yeah, well, should Christoph Freund arrive from Salzburg and he's the one who should kick out to Thomas Müller? I mean, that is a tough thing to do, whoever is the leader, because who is the one who's going to tell Elvis Presley that it's time to quit? And Elvis found a way to do it himself, but it's quite hard to see that. And so he will always have the Bayern DNA. So, but I do so understand which is a great issue that you're talking about, great topics, because this is about communication strategy. Because you don't want to be the one who threw him out. Mm-hmm. I mean, look at Gary Lineker. Gary Lineker ending his career for the national team. He was taken out by Graham Taylor at the European Championship. I mean, nobody talked about that in terms of what they've done in their career. But nobody wants to be that man. Yeah. I do understand that.
But who do you think is it ultimately Uli Hoeneß that makes that decision based on what we've seen communication wise? Because if Eberl has said on a couple of occasions it is Müller to decide, and then now the proof's in the pudding, there is no contract extension offered, is it a case then of Uli Hoeneß saying we have to control our financials, or is it more so Eberl saying Oh, thank God Hoeneß can do it. Thank God he can say it, because we've only been here for, a short amount of time.
No, I guess that is a way to do it. What is Uli Hoeneß? He loves his players, but he also knows when it's time for them to go. Yeah. They're talking about the big, great relationship he had to Frank Ribéry. He talked him into to stay when he had the big offers when he was at his best. So I think this is going to be a team decision anyway. I don't think that Max Eberl will be standalone doing this, but we have to put this in a bit of perspective. Say that his wage is 17 million a year. So even if he gets a half, he's still paid the most Bundesliga players in there. He's very influential. He take position, he take oxygen, and it's just hard to see. That's the way it is, and that's why I started with a statement from Uli Hoeneß, because I think that he was right. There is time. Manuel Neuer will still be number one goalkeeper at Bayern for another year. Übrig is a great talent, but Neuer will be in the number one. Thomas Müller won't be the number one. He hasn't been the number one for a couple of 2 years. Is he a fantastic ambassador for Bayern? Of course he is. Can he, in some games, come in and do a change? Of course he can. But to be a manager of a club, to be a managing person at the club, there is finances, there are future. So what are you going to do? I mean, the easy thing for Thomas Müller, if he didn't want to play football, he could say, okay, I will end my career now, but I will shadow Dresden for 1 or 2 years to learn his trade and to get the best doing that. But these new generations, they are a bit different as well, because first of all, they are very fit, so they can play on forever, because that is just the way it is. I mean, now a player can play to 35, 36, 37, and he loves his football. You can see that Thomas Müller always kind of contagious, kind of great presence on the pitch. So he would play on. So if I was Thomas Müller, if I was Thomas Müller, if I tried to get into his head, I would kind of try to make a deal with Bayern, saying that I will be away for 2 years. I will travel. I will play another season. Then I will travel around, learn from the best. I'm Thomas Müller. I can go to Pep Guardiola. I can learn from him. I can go to Ancelotti. I can learn from him. And if you want to do that trade, what footballers do need to understand, though, which is very important, and that is one of my, I always talk about that. It's funny how footballers, their whole career, train more than anybody else. So that's why they, from all the people around the world who have a dream playing the Premier League and the Bundesliga, they have trained most of them all. Yeah. When they, after a career, when they go into a new job, they think they can just float around. They can just be around and they can kind of do a bit less. No, then you compete with other CEOs, other sport directors, other team managers who works 24/7 to be the best. Do you think that Markus Krösche is one of the, if not the best in the business, because this is a kind of thing that he will do in his spare time? He's 24/7 on. So that's very important for players to understand as well. Are you committed to do that? Are you committed to be, after a career, when they have told you what to do 24/7 from you were 17 till you were 35, are you ready to be available for the press, the media, the players, the employees, the board? I'm not sure. So I think that is probably a question that Thomas Müller asks himself as well, when you have an account that makes you gonna live in luxury for the rest of your life. And this is not a criticism of Thomas Müller. It's one of my favorite players. It's just that time when you have to decide what to do in the future. It's a tough decision.
It's a tough transition. I would, as we come and we have a bit of time to compress the fact that, or digest the fact that he is on a farewell tour. There is the documentary with him on Amazon Prime. I started it, which is a lot of, all the big hitters are part of that, singing their praises of Thomas Müller. I would recommend that. We could speak of Thomas Müller forever, but we do have other things to talk about that. And one of the other big topics within the Bundesliga was that Marco Rose was fired. Now, we can isolate it to the fact that RB Leipzig's form this season has not been very good. 6th in the league, a disastrous Champions League campaign, still in the cup as we speak, but underperformed. The impression we had that it was obviously that despite that, what kept Marco Rose in the job, following some strong results against Eintracht Frankfurt, one of which being in the cup, kept him in it because they still had a chance at getting a domestic trophy. But just before their semi-final against Stuttgart, they do fire Marco Rose. And you must question then what that is about, timing-wise. What could possibly have RB Leipzig pull the plug, just before the cup semi-final?
Yeah, and we have to remind people that we are recording this on the first semi-final, so we don't know the results of the two semi-finals. I think the easy answer, Marcus, is Champions League, because they're desperate to get into the Champions League. They hope that there are 7 or 8 games left of the season, that they have a chance to still get into the Champions League. It's going to be hard now with Bayern Leverkusen taking the 2 first. Who will do the 2 seconds? It was fantastic. We'll talk about that more about that in the end of this episode about the Champions League players. The only 2 teams who won was Gladbach, who won against Leipzig, and Eintracht, who won against Stuttgart, and Freiburg losing, Mainz losing. Yeah. So that was a good round for all Frankfurt fan and Gladbach fan. So yes, and at top of my head, Marcus, I'm thinking of back in the days when Otto Rehhagel was the Bayern Munich manager. He was fired just before the UEFA Cup final, and Franz Beckenbauer, the Kaiser, took over, and they won that final. So he missed on that. Yeah, and then Jose Mourinho, Tottenham, are going to a final. He was fired. Just at the top of my head, that it kind of doesn't make sense. But it's all about Champions League. But we talked also, Marcus, we have some friends of our podcast, and we have some people we like to talk to. So we got a report from Guido Schäfer. Guido played for Mainz back in the days. He has always have a great voice, and he's always a very good writer as well. So I asked him if he could contribute to this, because he is an insider, an RB Leipzig insider. So we can listen to him here.
RB Leipzig hammered Marco Rose. Yes, it's not only a surprise for me. It's unbelievable. 3 days before the match, the cup match in Stuttgart, the relationship between Marco and RB Leipzig was a real fairy tale. Not only for me. Marco is born in Leipzig. He was the coach from RB Leipzig. More passion and more identification is not possible. In my opinion, it's a fault to hammer Marco in this moment, but it's not the only fault. In the past, they thought a few years ago that a future without Ralf Rangnick, the mastermind, is a better future, a better way, and Ralf went away, the mastermind. They thought also that it's possible to go in the future without Julian Nagelsmann. They nearly offered him the job in Bayern, and they choose then Jesse Marsch, and he stayed 5 months. Big fault. And the third big fault was also, they thought in 2021 that a future without Markus Krösch is a better future. They thought that Markus Krösch is not skillful enough for RB Leipzig. Markus leave Leipzig, and we all know that nowadays he's the best manager in the Bundesliga. Yes, the situation is strange for me, also because some meetings between the past, meetings with Jürgen Klopp, with Marco Rose, with Scholt Löw, with Marcel Schäfer, they spoke about the situation, about the problems, about the injuries from very important players, Scavi and Saga, and they spoke also about the new season, the new team that they have to build up, a team with more stability, physical stability, more mentality, also more speed. And now the future will build without Marco Rose. In my opinion, he is a big coach, a great coach, and also a big character. He gave so much to this city, to this club, and to this team. And but some of the players also, perhaps some of the bosses, forgot that also payback time is important in this business. I wish Marco all the best. He will find a new club
And that was Guido Schäfer, that, and a pretty damning criticism in a way, a pretty honest assessment, which we greatly appreciate as well. And some of the names that pop out there, a Nagelsmann, obviously with his what he stands for and what he represents, a Marcus Krusher, who's doing such a fantastic job at Eintracht, and also for the fact that Marco Rose didn't seem to have that full-on support that he perhaps was hoping for. You've worked with Marco Rose. You're a big fan of Marco Rose. We can still isolate the nature of his performances and them not being good enough to then the overall structure, and we still trying to make sense in a way in terms of who makes the overall decision makings across the Red Bull organization, into Red Bull Leipzig, etc. Can there be a case made that there is a bit of mismanagement in terms of the overall structure? Should RB Leipzig have done better than what their performances or titles suggest, considering the infrastructure that is around the club?
Well, we know that Red Bull is all about performance. We see that in Formula One these days. I mean, if you think that kick out Marco Rossi is big, try to have a look at Formula One with Lawson after 2 races is out of the top team. So the guy who's making the decision is Oliver Mintzlaff, but you have Gomez, you have Scherer, you have Jurgen Klopp. So there's a lot of people around. So they got a good quality in the management, Marcus. But of course, because of Red Bull setup, about the history in Leipzig, they will kind of be people will be critical in another way, because it's. But if you have a look to it, it's quite easy to see that it's the same as in Dortmund. And there is no Red Bull. It's just a lack of culture, the lack of thing that is developed. I think that Oliver Mintzlaff, I think that RB Leipzig will be the first one to admit they should never let Julian Nagelsmann gone, because he could have built an imperium there. To remind people, he went being the second in the league. He went to Bayern, and they got a transfer fee, 25 million euro or something, which is not a high amount when you think of what they could have built there. So I think that for them, it's now all about getting the setup right again. Leipzig and Red Bull's system of football was based on the ideas of Ralf Rangnick. They had Didi Mateschitz, who was the big owner who kind of gave the mandate to do all these kind of things. So, but football and sport is so brutal. You have to get the results in there, but it's not a lack of talents in the management of Leipzig. They have some of the best names in our branch around. So, but the Marco Rose thing is, I don't know him as a coach. I've always I haven't worked with him as a coach. I haven't seen his training sessions, but I like the way he speaks. I like the way he is as a person. I said that in Dortmund. I think it was very unfair that he got fired after 1 year. And I think the history will tell that wasn't the main problem at Dortmund. So they have to turn this thing around quick. Like you were saying, they got an interim coach now till the end of the season. His job will be, and there's still a chance that he can get into Champions League. I hope not, because I want my Eintracht to be there. 4 teams in Germany doing that. As Mainz losing, and like I said, the Freiburg losing, that there is a chance that Frankfurt could be in there. But I won't put Frankfurt into this, because this is about RB Leipzig. And I think that they have a history of bringing in coaches from the Red Bull kind of imperium. So I think Roger Schmidt will be, the last job he had was at Benfica. I think that he will be the main candidate. What is quite interesting, Marcus, is to say that this earthquake of coaches hasn't happened in Germany. Remember, I said at one time, Sebastian Hoeneß will take over this or that club. Sandro Wagner could come there. So this could be like an earthquake kind of thing. That hasn't happened. So I think that Roger Schmidt will take over in Leipzig. And then again, as for Dortmund, they have to have a look at the culture. They did the best signing. We forget that. They've signed Jurgen Klopp, so they have one of the best names again in the business. But his main thing is to come in every department of the whole organization with all the clubs to get that winning culture going.
Zolöv comes in, been part of the Red Bull system, has been assistant to Rangnick, has been assistant to Hasenhüttl, has been assistant to Tuchel at the PSG and Bayern. So he comes with experience, but not as head coach experience. Big few games for Dortmund and RB Leipzig, especially. coming up, because there is a big difference, and we're talking in the tens of millions in terms of where you qualify in Europe or not, Champions League, Europa League, etc. It is pretty significant in terms of what that precedent sets for the summer and also the following seasons that come from it. We do have to speak of the teams in these European places. Eintracht, we would hope, because Eintracht have had a steady build-up. Eintracht work so deliberately and so strategically. It is incredible achievement, but it doesn't come as a shockwave as it does a Mainz being in fourth, for instance. The same you can say about Gladbach as well. Despite their European might, they are up there as well. But let's talk first about Eintracht. A solid game against Stuttgart. They did score when Stuttgart were a man down, but nonetheless a very strong performance by Eintracht Frankfurt, and a pretty significant win for them.
Oh, and I was nerve-wracking. I was watching that game because still 1-0. Stuttgart had their chance. And to be fair, Nübel, the Stuttgart goalkeeper, was very good. But the man of the match for me was Ekitike. He was brilliant. Yeah. He was all over the place. And I like the word floating because I define that as people who's kind of they kind of don't touch the grass. They just float. It's like I always use that metaphor of the FIFA back in the days when the players just like floating all over. In my generation, that was a guy called the Dane Michael Laudrup. He was that kind of player. So Eintracht did well. It was a very important win for them, and especially when the teams around them lost. That was so they got themselves a little kind of space though. Quite good games coming up, but wow. But they are in Bremen, they are in Augsburg, so there is a different games coming up now that you can expect them to win. But having said that, I think that the advantage for Eintracht is that they're competing with other teams with the same lack of experience of being in that situation. So Mainz were not expected to be in that, losing to Dortmund. Then you had Freiburg, has done ever so well after changing the manager and the coach coming in, and then Gladbach is back there as well. Wow, I think that the main thing is Tim Kleindienst, who has been the kind of talisman for their progress, the symbol of their progress, and done ever so well. And I must remind our younger viewers, Gladbach used to be in the 70s one of the big clubs in Germany. They were always up there winning the championship with Bayern.
They did indeed. And under Seoane as well. We must not forget that there was Seoane that lost his job. Xabi Alonso took over at Leverkusen. And there were some murmurs in terms of what he had done. Lack of performances at the beginning of the season. But my oh my, the recovery that they've had despite their amount of losses. I think they're on 10 losses, which is significantly more than the teams around them. But they won games as well and have a real shot at a Champions League. And then, there was some movements also at the bottom. Heidenheim won against Wolfsburg, which was huge for them. They went past Bochum in the league. Hugely significant. Union gave themselves some cushion after winning away to Freiburg, which was a surprising result.
Thank you for that result from a Frankfurt perspective. That was a big win for them. And if you see down there, it's 4 team in real working. St. Pauli did a good job against Bayern. 3-2 was a bit flattering because they scored the 3-2 just at the end there. I mean, as a neutral, you hope that after Leverkusen won, that there was a chance that Bayern could throw away a couple of points, but they winning again with Kane and Leroy Sané too. So they did what they had to do, and they were up there, although they have a lot of injury problems, Marcus.
Yeah, and we will do a special going into the Bayern-Inter game where we will touch more upon Bayern and their overall situation. It was looking so good and so promising, and then just like that, there was a defense crisis. I think that concludes it. I mean, we just have to make the point that also Leroy Sané is up for a contract negotiation, has his most prolific Bundesliga season in his Bayern career, which makes for
imagine that.
Yeah, imagine that. It makes for a rather interesting backdrop for the Bayern executive team, who don't quite know if they want to extend or not. Will be a high earner. Let's see. From an Arsenal perspective, I would take him. So that's all I have to say.
Yeah. Imagine the meetings at Sebenerstrasse. This is where Bayern train, where they have their, so to say, their clubhouse. Imagine that meeting. They're thinking, yeah, we have to save some money. So let's start with Goretzka. He won't play. No, he won't play a lot. Okay, he's one of the most important players for Bayern, and put himself into Julian Nagelsmann, and he will be together with Kimmich in that double six. He'll be in that team. That's Goretzka. Okay, we won't save money on him. What about Leroy Sané? He's like, we can sell him because sometimes it doesn't look like he's interesting. He's not there. Okay, he scored 2. Okay, that's going to be troubling as well. Can we lose a player like that on a free this summer? Oh, so that's why we can end where we start. That is Thomas Müller left with his wages, and because the likes of Gnabry, the likes of Coman, the likes of Leroy Sané, likes of Goretzka, they're all on the list. Now I've taken the players who are playing most. They will be on the list saying that they have to save money, because although they haven't signed any big-time players, they have extended some contracts big times. They were talking about Davis from Canada, who now did his cruciate, of course, playing for Canada against USA, poor lad. There was a handgeld apparently of over 20 million euros. So everything costs. Kimmich is not free for free either. Harry Kane is a big-time player. Manuel Neuer is a big-time player, and so on. So it's not easy to be in the management of Bayern at the moment, with the injuries and with the people above them telling them to save money. It's not easy.
Yeah, and that's what keeps us going in this podcast as well. But yeah, it's not easy. They want Nico Williams, and then you look at Nico Williams' output compared to Sané, and then you think, oh, maybe a better deal to extend with Sané, and so on and so on. But that concludes our wrap up from the weekend. We have a couple of exciting episodes coming up with a couple of exciting guests. We've enjoyed a lot of great response to the last few episodes, a lot of great engagement. We are on YouTube. We are on all audio platforms, depending on where you listen to this. Please feel free to like, comment, and subscribe. Of course, we really enjoy your engaging with you and building this community, which, yes, we've enjoyed a lot of, especially this year of 2025.
Yeah, and we believe us, because we are sitting here engaged. We love our German football. We try to follow everything. I was in Germany this week doing the Leipzig book fair, Marcus. If you heard about an author called Karl-Ove Knausgård, I gave him a number 7 shirt from Eintracht Frankfurt, one of the most famous authors in Germany and in Europe, by the way. But I mean, but we love our community, and now we're nearly 15,000 subscribers. So please follow us, be part of our community. We love to be building up this community of football-loving fans, and your engagement, believe me, I mean, we answer them all. I hope that we don't miss out on anything, but it's also great to have the feedback. What do you want us to talk about? What do you want to listen more about? Sometimes we think it's all Bayern. Then we have an episode on the German national team, and people, wow, they are so interesting in that. So get him coming, and that follow button, and tell a friend that they should engage with us.
Exactly, whatever works, I guess. But that I enjoyed that. Thanks a lot, and we will catch up very shortly for a few of our specials.
Auf Wiedersehen.